What about it, YouTube? Alright, so I got all fired up the other day about the Messianics, and it's because I listened to, uh, watched a debate with Dr. Brown and this guy named Gabe Finocchio, and it was moderated by some clown with tattoos that runs a channel called God Bless Studios. And I say he's a clown because he was basically taken up for the duplicitous, conniving, usual suspect, fake Converso, uh, just shyster Dr. Brown. All right, and so I'm going to try to describe and explain how Dr. Brown is a pile of crap, a duplicitous liar, a scumbag. He's absolutely not to be listened to at all by any Christian. And you need to understand the duplicity and the heresy and how he's leading you down some primrose path. He's paving the way and putting in the street lights and the lane markers and everything for the no-hide laws. All right? And I'm going to explain it to you. And this is how it works. I'm blowing you out the door, Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown is going down. Here we go. All right, I was raised Mormon, okay? I'm no longer Mormon. And I've been through different phases in life. That's neither here nor there. But when I left Mormonism as about a 17, 18-year-old young man, all right, I was done. I no longer identified as Mormon. Right? And when you tell people you're from Utah and that your family's Mormon, they might say you're Mormon, but in my heart, they might make fun, or they might, oh, you're one of them Mormons, So I've been through that, right? I still might go through it if I say, oh, I'm from Utah. Oh, are you one of them Mormons? I mean, it's just something you deal with. But in my heart, I don't go around telling people I'm Mormon. Right? In my heart, in my beliefs, in my faith, I am no longer Mormon. Now, my family is. And there's things changing now. They're becoming more sort of woke. It's kind of disgusting. But as a child, I understand because I grew up Mormon. It's not all bad, as far as when I grew up, they tried to keep you on the straight and narrow. It's a works-based religion. They do more worshiping of Joseph Smith than they do of Jesus. But they do include the King James Version of the Bible, and so, they don't talk trash about Jesus. They don't understand how a lot of people don't understand how the whole grace and keeping God's commandments, not backsliding, how that all balances out, right? It's not one or the other. It's kind of like a mixture, and you got to figure that out. It's like with your wife. Like, you don't do something to betray your wife, right? You shouldn't, right? If you wouldn't do it to your wife, then you shouldn't do it to God. So if your wife has certain expectations of you, and you understand that, and you make a covenant with her and vows with her, then you should keep that, and she should keep it with you. But it works both ways with God that way, right? So that's how I like to think of it, right? Like, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. If you love your wife, you'll respect her, and you won't betray her, and you won't have to come running back to her every 5 seconds asking for forgiveness, okay? So I've gotten a little bit off track. Let's go back. Okay, so I'm Mormon, and I was Mormon. And so now let's just say, here's where I'm getting to the meat of the matter. If I'm approached by someone who says, those Mormons, they're effed up, and I can't believe, the polygamy thing, and it's so effed up, and it's so not Christian, and it's so bad. But I was saying, as a kid growing up, right, it wasn't such a bad thing, right? But now that I'm who I am, if someone came to me I wouldn't be running head first to defend it. Like, oh, now you're talking shit about my family. Oh, now you're talking shit about my childhood. Oh, now you're offending me, and oy vey. No, I mean, however it might go. I mean, I might suggest, look, I grew up Mormon, and where I went, they didn't do that. And if you showed up with a bunch of wives, you'd probably be escorted out. But at the same time, I knew pockets that were in the valley that practiced it. They're still there. And I heard about it. I knew about it. I knew the history of the church. There's still some kind of crap in heaven where you can have multiple wives, according to the Mormons. And women have went and got sealed to Joseph Smith, thinking that they're going to die and be sort of like married to Joseph Smith in heaven and all this kooky nonsense. And so I know this. So I'm going to be honest about it, right? So if someone is complaining about the Mormon church and the polygamy thing, I'm going to relate with them, and I'm going to agree with them overall, right? I might just tell them, like, hey, my family didn't do it, and they're not into it. And in fact, my family sort of has problems with the whole history thing of it and some of it, and it's an ongoing struggle because of how the church is going woke and is changing in some respects. But when I grew up, it was all, they were into the Boy Scouts, and it was good, and nobody tried to fiddle with me, and it was cool. But anyway, when it comes to Dr. Brown, here's the difference. If somebody says anything, I don't care what it is, anything from any part of history, if somebody brings anything up to Dr. Brown, small, big, medium, it doesn't matter. If it's any kind of criticism about the Jews, anything, that dude will flip over backwards with his duplicitous, shyster, debate style, calling the kettle black, like farting and saying, who shit their pants, right? Like, that's all he does. That's all he does. And change the subject and won't stay on point, and then claims that you're doing stuff that he's doing. He's the biggest scumbag. Typical. I mean, he makes me so upset because I hear the Jew in him when he talks. It's just so conniving and duplicitous, and it's so dishonest, right? He will not come out. If someone said, hey, Dr. Brown, what about Al Goldstein bragging about how the Jews run the prawn, right? He would flip over backwards about how that's a lie, they don't run that, and how dare. And if he was saying that, it's because he's an atheist Jew, so he doesn't understand how to act. And if he's talking about how he thinks Christ sucks, well, see, there you go. You're just taking one example. You know what I mean? It would just be some kind of nonsense. He would flip over backwards for Al Goldstein, for George Soros, for Klaus Schwab, for Rothschild, for name them all. They're just everywhere, right? The Hawktah girl, right? I mean, they're just everywhere in our culture. Margaret Sanger, they're just everywhere, pulling their schemes and their tricks and running all of the cultural destruction, and the attack on Jesus and Christians is just in your face. But oy vey, we're going to have laws about not being able to say, this or that about Jews, and even quoting the Bible will be illegal. I mean, Dr. Brown, you're a pile of crap. All right? If you were a true Christian, you would not identify anymore with this Jewry nonsense. And you would be embarrassed, dude. Like, there's a bit of embarrassment, I suppose, that, I was part of some kind of thing that's all kooky. But I'm kind of mellow about the embarrassment part of it. But I'd be horrified to ever have anyone find out that I might have been a Jew, right? To have to tell somebody that I grew up in Israel and have them go like, oh, you're Jewish? Like, I would just be horrified, even if I came, like I'm saying, like I come out of it and supposedly I accept Jesus now. I'd be horrified to be like, look, I want you to know this. what they're up to, this crap about Jesus boiling and shit, and the Mother Mary is a whore, and all this other mess. Look, I am not part of that. I am not defending that. And all this blotting out Amalek, and by deception thou shalt wage war, and never forgive, never forget. No, I'm on Team Jesus. You got to forgive everyone. You got to forgive your enemies. You got to, if you're going to be forgiven, it's in the Lord's Prayer. Look, if I'm a true Christian, Dr. Brown, that's what I'm screaming. Okay? So you need to learn it, dude. Quit this crap talking about you're just some fake bull crap converso at this point. And I'll pray for you, bro, that you actually learn what being a Christian is. Because being a Christian is knowing them by their fruits. God bless.